just note that. We're going to hold questions until the end of the presentation. So when we roll through, we'll kind of go through like introductions and like of each person that's going to be speaking. And then at the very end, we will hold the question and answer because I'm sure there are quite a bit of questions. I'm hoping this will take only about an hour, but I planned for an hour and a half just in case we need to go over. So think of this as pretty casual. We're just going through the basics of how this will work. So like I said, we will go ahead and I'm going to share my presentation. I just have a few slides. And we just practiced this just a second ago. So let's see if I can do this. One. Very good. Okay. All right. Rock on. So just if you can open your chat while I'm going through this, what I would love is if, whoops, yes, here we are. If you can introduce yourself, please, so we can kind of get an idea for attendance. And I'll introduce myself here in a second, but just please type in your name, where you're from or who you represent, and your email contact, please. And then, of course, your favorite tree. So you can do that throughout the session while we're just getting going here. And then, yeah, so I'll cover the IRA funding, the overview, program development grants, the changes that we've made. Janice Fontaine I'll roll over to her next and she'll talk about the submittable platform. And then our Kristen Martin will help explain the map application that we've developed for these funds. So with that, hello, my name is Jamie Kirby, and I'm the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager for Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. And I recognize a lot of you on this webinar, so it's exciting to see you again and see names of people that are interested in possibly applying and how this will all roll out. So let's see, did I miss anything for the intro? No, we'll just roll into each person and they will introduce themselves later. So I'll go over this for about 15 minutes tops. Janice will be about 10 minutes and Kirsten will be about 10 as well. And then, yeah, we'll make time for the questions and answers. Okay. So Inflation Reduction Act. If you haven't heard of this already, it's quite a big deal. We secured in Montana almost $2 million total from Inflation Reduction Act funds. And a little bit of background of it is the map that you see here with the total grant allocations of millions of dollars from the Urban and Community Forestry Program nationally from the U.S. Forest Service. And the first round, which happened early last year, actually, no, it was almost a year ago, was the state opportunity. So all the states applied for various amounts. The state of Montana Urban Forestry applied for $7.7 million. What happened at the end, though, was that it was decided to sort of scrap the proposal idea and give most of us states in a rural setting a more base amount. So you'll notice across the board that the more rural states received just a base amount of $750,000. It was quite a blow and quite a bummer to put a lot of time and investment into, what we thought was a reasonable proposal, but nonetheless, it's still money that we'll gladly take. So in addition, the NOFO is what you'll hear it being called, was the public funding opportunity. And so that happened a few months later. And so that was for all entities to apply, including states. And so DNRC applied for $1.2 million and received full funding for that, which was pretty exceptional. That funding is for, it's called Trees for Indigenous Nations, and it's to help specifically tribal assistance with urban forestry programs, which is very exciting. In addition, for the public NOFO, I was informed that Butte and Billings each were awarded a grant as well. So the grand totals on the top for that map is the state allocations, and then beneath it is the grand total for how much money is coming into the state for the public allocations. So the purpose of the IRA funds, so they are to advance environmental justice, economic opportunity, and for clean energy. The eligibility requirements are important to note. So these are for disadvantaged communities, and the definition is communities that are marginalized, underserved, and overburdened by pollution and underinvestment. Just put in a quick copy of what the map looks like here, but of course we'll go over that in much more detail. But that's this picture and image here is a basic overview of what Montana's disadvantaged areas look like. So the grand total from that 750,000 that we received, we have for over 5 years that we'll distribute in the form of stub awards. So we split it into 2 years, and that's why we'll have another notice RFP next year for FY25. So this year we're offering 300,000, and then next year you'll have another chance to go for that other $300,000. So this is new for all the states. We're all going through this new process. It's taken a lot of learning. We're one of the first programs in forestry type programs to deliver the IRA funds. And so there's still a lot that we're learning and a lot of questions that we're asking of the Forest Service as well. So it's kind of a learning process as we go. So just bear with us as we're all trying to put together how this best works. But rest assured, I've made it so that we've maximized the expanse of eligible areas and communities that can apply. If you do have concerns, we can talk about that later as well, of like, you know, if your community, if you're not seeing areas that you feel are eligible, we can talk about that later. I did notice that a Forest Service partner, sorry, Jacob, I'm going to call you out, is attending this meeting. And so just take note, Jacob, if you see anything that you can, you know, pop in and address and answer from the Forest Service perspective, that'd be great. Okay, so in this, also in this RFP, you'll see a new phrase, and it's called community-based organizations. So that term, instead of just saying communities, means that the eligibility is for, you know, anybody that can kind of represent a community. So a public or nonprofit organization can apply as well if they support a represented community and or certain populations within that community for engagement, education, or other related services. So that was just another note about the difference of these IRA funds. Okay, so side by side, what we decided to do was have the application process combined into just one. So we have the program development grants and the Inflation Reduction Act grants. So you can look at those two and which ones you might want to go for. We increased the minimum request amount to $10,000 because these are supposed to be large scale with high impact projects. The maximum amount is $50,000. So you can tell just side by side, some of the differences are outlined here. The total available for Inflation Reduction Act funds are $300,000 versus program development grant funds, which we have $100,000 for this year. For being eligible for IRA funds, you have to show that you're a disadvantaged community, and we'll show how you do that later on in this presentation. For program development grants, like I said in the previous slide, the eligibility is the same as the last year. So I think, yeah, I have some of those examples if you're wondering in my notes later on. The big thing is that with Inflation Reduction Act funds, there's no match requirement. So DNRC received a match waiver that passes through into subrecipients. That means that these funds are SHRIP award grant funds. And that's a big bonus and a really big opportunity for us. We also increased the amount of our expanse of time frame for how long the program has for implementing these grants. So it used to be 1 year, usually, if you're used to seeing that, like for program development grants. Now they're 2 to 3 years. So you have some more time to implement these grants, which is important as well. Also for big changes was program development grants. We reduced the amount of match requirement. So if you remember the last previous, I don't know, forever years, it's been a 50-50, so $1 per dollar. Now we've reduced it to a 3 to 1. So you only need to put up $1 for every $3 that you ask for. And these projects will probably be about 2 years as well. The Inflation Reduction Act funds, though, have a more robust kind of ability to expand to 3 years if need be. So consider that when you're looking at the time frame and timeline of your project. I'm going to keep repeating this. So application deadline, January 31st. And we will try no later than April 2024 to score and competitively rate each of these grant proposals. The program development grants will be scored on a separate basis from the Inflation Reduction Act funds. Yeah, so no match requirement. It must take place entirely within a disadvantaged community for the Inflation Reduction Act. And we will talk about the grant tool in a little bit, which is the MAP application. I'm just putting up this slide because I think it's a good one to talk about, like to just stare at this while I talk about the next things. When you're looking at applying for a grant with the DNRC program here, it's going on this continuum. And so this is kind of the basis for growing your program. And that's why it's called program development grants. But as well, this is kind of a line of progress for all programs with urban forestry and municipalities. The federal and state program goals, you'll see that in the RFP. Make sure that your proposal ties into those and create relevant objectives specific to your community. They should align with the plans, and there's links in the RFP that describe the National 10-Year Urban Forestry Action Plan, the Montana State Forest Action Plan, there's a Montana Climate Solutions Plan, and then there's the Justice 40 Initiative. So all of these are, and then this Inflation Reduction Act, I'm still scrolling of all the notes of all the plans and the planning plans. So all of these are important to consider when you're looking at how to develop your project. Every theme in each one, you'll see a lot of overlap, and we've summarized the main points of it in the RFP. So you'll just keep hearing me repeat myself about the RFP because that has everything in it. So if there's any questions along the way, following this presentation webinar, just go back to the RFP. So summary, tips, what I just said. Okay, so read every single word of the grant RFP, the request for proposal. Think outside of the bark. So aim for the large scale, long-term community impact. And please utilize your resources. So your DNRC contacts, your local groups. There could be service foresters at a unit nearby in your community. Partner communities or other places that have experience in applying for these or success. Definitely reach out to them to help develop your project proposal. Reach out to me, anybody. And another note is, throughout this process, this will be a much more highlighted type of project in a good way. It's a good thing, trust me. So the grant tracking and frequent check-ins would be really important as you think about how you will implement this project. But there's there's ability to, because there's more money in these, you can ask for like reimbursement requests more often, especially if there's nonprofits that don't have a lot of base funds in their accounts. We can reimburse as often as needed, as monthly if possible. So we're willing to be flexible, work with you if all those questions come up about how your project is going to look and develop, and brainstorm ideas. We've got you. Also just note that, like, if you do have a project in mind before pictures, like getting an idea of what the present state of that area is really important, and it'll give a better idea for the scores or the helpers on the team to get a better picture of what you're looking for long-term goals. So here's our team. So you can reach out to any of us if you need to. I just grabbed these pictures from some of the bios that we have, and you can contact me. And this is kind of the urban forestry team that put all of this work together. Alexis Armstrong, and she's helping take notes. And if you have any questions, by the way, please right now use them in the chat while we're going through things. And at the end, she can help sort through any questions that you have. So please type in. Hannah Payne and Sherry Steckler. So there are new regional UCF foresters. And then we have, I just put rock stars at work. We have the behind the scenes folks, Janice Fontaine, Lori Palm, Kristen, Liz, and there are several others that put in a lot of time and effort into making these grants possible to deliver into our communities in the state. And we are one of the first to finally get these grants out the door. And I'm so sorry also for how the delay was, because typically these grants, as some of you are aware, usually come out about a month ago, if not earlier. And same with the Arbor Day grants, which are now called tree planting grants. I just want everybody to know that those are going to come out soon. And I've been getting some questions about those, but those are a little delayed because of the delay in this process. So they are coming out, and you can certainly ask questions about those as well during this session or opportunity to chat with us. So with that, I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to turn it over to the amazing Janice Fontaine, and she will talk about the Submittable platform.
Janice, you're on mute.
Okay, professionals at work. All right, so you should be seeing the Urban and Community Forestry grants page. So this is one of about 15 different ways to access the grant RFP. But this is the simplest way, I thought, just right on our DNRC website. So there is information in here that you can look at, or if you're ready to go, just click apply here. This takes you directly to our RFP. So, and this is the submittable page. And as Jamie was mentioning, read every word. There are some differences in here, so we want to make sure that you are getting all of the information that you can get so you can be successful when you apply for these. Right here, this blue is the link to the grant tool that will help you determine if your project is entirely within a disadvantaged community. Kirsten will be going over that with you in a moment. Read all through this. These links are the links that Jamie was referring to in the green screen that we were supposed to stare at while she was talking. These are the different initiatives, action plans that your goals should align with. They, of course, don't have to align with every single one, but you should be reviewing these to determine if your project is going to align with them. Okay, More information, links to the subaward. The main thing I wanted to show you, there are two things on this page I wanted to show you. One, this right here is new. You may not have seen it before. We are asking that you enter your organization's EIN or UEI, which is unique entity identifier. This will link you to any of the grants that you submit in Submittable over time. So if you submit things for multiple organizations, the UEI will link you to the correct one. It will also pull up information that makes it a lot easier for us to find you, and in the long run will allow you, pardon me, to enter less information. So if you have access to these numbers, please enter them here before you move on. You can find your UEI on sam.gov. Any nonprofit organization, county, anybody like that should have one. Or if you can't find it, your EIN, I think that's employer identification number, will work too. But don't let this hold you up. If you cannot find it, please just go ahead, skip, and continue to application. So that's that. And I also wanted to show you where to find our worksheet. So this worksheet is a Word version of the application that you will find in Submittable. It goes step by step and has lots of extra information, instructions. Like right here, anything in red is like an additional note that I really wanted to call attention to. The idea behind this worksheet is to give you a heads up, allow you to see what you're going to be asked, so you can develop your project before you actually start filling it out in Submittable, and use it as an opportunity to write out what you want to say and then copy and paste into the Submittable application. Please don't submit this. We don't want your Word version. It does have to be submitted into the Submittable platform, but we want you to have an easily accessible way to see what you're going to be asked. You will notice right here, the red asterisks, these you will also see in the Submittable platform. That means that is a required question. You will not be able to submit an application if one of those is left blank. There are some questions that don't have that, and they are usually labeled optional at the beginning of the question. Okay, checking my notes. Excuse me. Here's some more instructions. Please do watch the presentation that Kirsten's going to give you on the map. But if you forget a certain step, here's some instructions to help you remember what she talked about. So yeah, going through down here. Another thing I wanted to point out is, I gotta find one that has it. Okay, so when you are just looking at the worksheet, questions in green, those are specific to disadvantaged communities. Within Submittable, when you choose if your project is going to be entirely within a disadvantaged community, when you say yes, it is, it's going to branch on several questions. And there are some parts of this you simply won't see. So green on the worksheet designates those questions that you will see and will be required to answer if you are applying for the IRA funds with your project in a disadvantaged community. If you're applying for just the development grant funds, those questions will be in blue. Just wanted to note that for you if you're working on the worksheet. We'll also see here 300 words. That means there's a 300-word limit on this question, the black question, describe any potential challenges. You have 300 words to answer within Submittable. If you do 301 words, it's not going to let you submit. And from what I understand, it's not always entirely clear. It can be a little confusing as to like, why won't it let me submit? And you're like pressing the button. Go back and check those and make sure that you didn't go over your word count, because that can be a real easy way of, causing yourself some heartburn. Yeah, so that is the worksheet that I wanted to show you. So the next thing is I want to show you how to set up an account in Submittable. So let's say we're just going to skip it and go to the application. So Brings you back down here again. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I practiced. Okay, so let me, it should take you to, well, this is not working out well at all. I apologize. I said it was working before.
I could jump in real quick if you'd like.
It's okay. I think I've got it set under control, but thank you very much, Kristen. So if you do not have an account, it will take you to a screen where you have to set up your account. You will be asked for your name, first and last, your email, and a password. It's really all you have to have an account set up. So it will ask you to either sign on or create an account. So once you have either created an account or signed on, it will bring you to this. This is going to be your submissions homepage. As you can see, all of mine are tests. We test a lot of stuff. So right here, you see where these things are. So if you're working on a submission, you can look at it here. You can just click on the name of the submission and it will take you to it. So this shows you your activity. This is what I've been testing, so it's been accepted. You can see any messages that have been sent to you over the course of the project. You can see your forms. So if you're looking for your report form or your request for reimbursement forms, they will be here in forms and you can download them and fill them out. Any notes that you'd happen to add. And I haven't received any awards. My test forms aren't good enough, but that's okay. So this is where you'll find your things. If you are looking for something that you have saved that you haven't finished, so you're halfway through your application, you have to leave, you save it, but don't submit it, you're going to see your saved items right here under saved. So that is where to find your items. Okay. So another thing we just wanted to reiterate, Jamie mentioned it, but since this is a pretty new situation and the dollars there's a lot more available, we do want to make sure that you all know that you are eligible to request funds or reimbursement more than once over the life of the grant. Usually with PD grants, it's almost always just a one shot, and at the end of the grant, funds are requested. You can request funds multiple times, as often as monthly, quarterly, biannually, what works for you. But go ahead, and if you're in need of funds, request that reimbursement so we can get that money to you and you don't have to struggle. Those forms, again, will be saved. Oh, sorry. See, I've been using this for 2 years and I still miss things. Those will be saved within your submission. So click on that, forms. And it will show what forms you have available to use. So I think I have hit all of my notes. Make sure that if you have any questions, save them till the end. I will be here. I can answer them. Kirsten can answer them. She's very, very good with submittable. So I hope that was helpful. Always reach out and ask us questions anytime you have them. Grants Department's here to help. So Kirsten, on to you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name's Kirsten. I'm the grant support tech here in Missoula for the forestry office. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen with you. And we'll jump into how to use the mapping tool. So much like what Janice already showed you, you can access that mapping tool from that RFP. Just go here. We'll get that opened up for you. All right, well, that's taken a second to load. Excellent. I'm going to use Missoula as our example today. So in this middle search bar, you can search for an exact address or just a city, whatever works best for you for finding what you need. And hit that search bar and it'll take us there. All right. So we're in downtown Missoula right now. And before we start jumping into how to draw things on the map and all that good stuff, I want to point your attention to the right side of the screen to our legend. So you'll see those white stripes on the map. Those are our CGEST communities. So those are defined by census tracts, and a lot of data gets all put together to make this beautiful map for you. That's the CGEST, and that is one of the requirements for disadvantaged communities to apply. They need to be in a CGEST, or this, we call it the EJ, environmental justice. So those are just shaded gray. So you see the stripes to the right side here. I'll select it so it turns blue for you. It's being a little slow at the moment. Well, there's some sections that are obviously shaded gray. Those are the EJ ones. And then the section top where it says, Waterworks Hill here, that is neither of them. So that would be like a PD grant or something. That's probably where you want your project to be. All right. So from there, just pointing out our legend that it's important to note where your project is taking place and if it is eligible for the disadvantaged communities funds. So we are going to jump into an example using two little project areas on the same map. They're going to be in the same community. And I'm just going to show you what I think would be the best way to lay that out for you and for us when it comes time to review and look at these things. So on the left side of your screen, you have a draw tab. And that's really where you're going to spend your time here. So we're going to go over to what looks like this little draw point. Looks like when you drop a pin on Google Maps. I'm going to go ahead and click in there. This mapping application has a lot of options. If you're going to do more than one project, I'd recommend under the source, going down to numbers. And within here, you can number points. So you click on the item to select that that's what you want to do. Come over to your map. I want to do a project here. That's going to be my project area number 1. And my project area number 2 is going to be this other block over here. And that was my way of marking them. And that way I can go back in my grant application and say on number 1 or in project area 1, just to kind of help denote what exactly you're talking about. Because you might be doing things a little bit differently if you're going to do more than one little project. From there, we're going to jump over to the draw a polygon tool. I would not recommend using the line tool. I'd recommend jumping over to the polygon tool, which is going to be the third one down here. Highly recommend using a visible color like orange or red. It's just really easy for everyone to see it on the map. Now I'm going to come to my project area. You click once to get it started. You click again. Every time you click, it drops a point. You can make whatever shape suits your purpose. And to end that polygon, you're going to click back onto where you started. And there we go. That one's done. I'll do another one for my project area number 2. Click back to where you started. And now we have our 2 polygons on the map there. I'm going to show you in case you decide, oh, I did not like the way I drew that. That didn't work out. I want to change it. On that draw tab, the very first option is just a little mouse, it looks like, the select feature. Go ahead and click on that. Then on your map, you'll click on your polygon that you want to remove. See how it has the little border around it? You can exit out of this. It's just telling you about the CGEST communities, that it is, in fact, within the CGEST area. And then back in that draw tab in the upper left, there's a little trash can. You can just go ahead and delete that one item. At the top there in that draw tab, there is a little eraser on the far right side. If you click that, it will remove everything on your map. So just be careful if you do click on that, it will remove everything. So I'm going to put that polygon back on and show you how to export this lovely map. So we've got our 2 points here. And also before we export, I just want to say, you can click on the polygons and it tells you if for some reason you're having a hard time seeing the legend, it lets you know if it's in the CGEST area or not. Here it says it is. Right. So on the right side of the screen, we see this print templates underneath the legend for you. We'd really like in this title section for you to put the name of your community. Or if you want to get really specific and include an address, you can. I don't think there's a limit, but try to make sure that it's relevant to your project. So I'm going to call this Downtown Missoula UCF map. From there, I'm not going to change anything else. If you want to play around with the tool, you're welcome to, but you do not need to. There are advanced options that you can look at, but you don't have to by any means. So before you click that print button, you can put this view print extents. So all this blue area that got highlighted, that's what's going to show up on my map. If you zoom in really close, it's only going to show what you can see on your screen at that time. So make sure that you can see both your polygons. And you just click and drag to move around on the map. You're going to make sure you can see them both. You're like, okay, that looks good. I'm ready to print. We're going to click this print button. And then you have to go over to this print results tab. It has that little blue dot, which means there's something waiting for us. Just thinking about it right now. And when it's ready, there'll be a little box next to it that we can click on and give it just a moment to load. All right, so it is now ready. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And there we have it. We have our lovely map. Has the name that I gave it at the very top, your polygons and your numbers. This is going to be exported as a PDF. If you have software that can edit PDFs and you want to make some notes down in the lower left-hand section or in an open spot, that's fine, but that is by no means a requirement of this map. We really want to see something just like this. If you're not doing 2 projects like my example, you don't need to add numbers even. You can just draw your shape that encompasses what we need to see. And just make sure you're a little zoomed out so that we can see the surrounding areas. It just helps give a little bit more context as to what we're looking at on that map. From here, you'll want to make sure that you download the map. For me, it's in the upper right-hand corner. I am using Google Chrome. Once you download it, you'll then go into Submittable and upload that PDF. And then you're kind of set on your merry way. And it's great for you to reference points on your map if you'd like throughout your application. It's helpful for everyone because we'll be looking at it during the review process. And then, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of options with this tool that you can explore if you want to, but you really don't need to go to the extremes here. Just show us where your project is, and that way we can determine if it falls within the CGEST or EJ or neither of them. So with that, I think I like to keep it nice and short and sweet. I think that's about all I have for this mapping tool.
Thanks, Kirsten. That was awesome. Really appreciate that. And it's a pretty slick map. I recommend you can go in and play with that and try it out. And if you have any questions, just give us a holler again. So at this point, we're going pretty good pace. I'm liking this. This will be viewable for people in the future, I hope, or a good reference. So I'm just going to share my final screen, and that is kind of opening it up for questions and answers. So Alexis Armstrong is the point of contact, the central point of contact for any questions, where she'll know where to direct you to the right people. And I'm going to have her or somebody reshare these important links. The 2 main ones to be aware of are the submittable announcement that we were just showing that Janice was going through, and Kirsten. And then the other one is the Urban Forestry webpage link, which that's where this recording will be posted, as well as little resources and other documents that you might need for tracking purposes, things like that. So at this point, are there any questions? I'm sure there are, but what I was mostly focusing on was the ginkgo chat, because that was getting me really excited, of course, because that's my favorite tree as well. And of course, that's my closing slide. How perfect is that? So I did see a couple questions. Alexis, did you catch some? Okay.
Yeah, there were only a couple so far, but feel free to continue putting them in the chat, or after I ask these first few, to go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask them directly. So I'll start with Joe's. He asked, for the matching awards, how does the organization document the match? And how can we apply for both grants, or do we have to decide which one we want to apply for?
Okay, I can take a stab at this one, but then I have my grants experts to help, or any of you to fill in. But yeah, so documenting match, that's a great question. So things like receipts, always keep your receipts. For proof of payment for these, you'll need to show what's called a proof of payment, and that's through things like called accounts payable. And payroll would be another example. Like a log of the volunteer hours, which I think is on the UCF webpage, for an example of how to log people's like time and the hours that they spent, like say on the project. Anything else that anybody else would add?
I would add that the simplest answer for both the request for reimbursement and the match is you want to provide proof that the cost was incurred. So that's a receipt, an invoice, etc., and then proof that it was paid, which, as Jamie said, would be a payroll report or a report from your accounting system, canceled checks, anything like that. And you have to do the same for both match and a request for reimbursement. There are more options in match, like she was saying, volunteer time. There's a link in the application to the volunteer, like it's a form that you can use. There's also a link to the federal, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's essentially a sheet that tells you what the going rate is for volunteerism. We do prefer that for volunteer time, you figure out what the going rate is for your area. So say you've got an attorney who is volunteering to plant trees. You would not count her hours at her attorney rate because she's not acting as an attorney. You would count her rate as what a person who plants trees would normally make. So a Parks and Rec employee. If she is volunteering as an attorney, then you would count her time at the attorney rate. So did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense to me. I'm going to add on to that, just for my own purposes, is that 3-to-1 match. Okay, so 50-50, dollar per dollar, like, made sense to me. And I'm just going to say I'm struggling. I don't know anybody else is good with this, but my math brain could not figure this out. So we do have like a quick guide reference for like what 3-to-1 match means. If you need any questions on that, just pop it in the chat if you're at all like, okay, how does this budget really look? Like, how much am I asking for? And then how much am I required to put in for match? And we can go through that with you too, because it took me a few tries to get the hang of it, but it's actually, it's not bad. So now that I have the like formula in my head figured out, yeah, so that's what I got for that too.
Thank you both. The next question that came in was from Michelle. She wrote, I don't think we have any projects planned now that would qualify for these grants, and I don't think we can get one organized before the end of January. Do you think the same standards will apply next year? Maybe her tree board could begin to put together a plan for 2024. So maybe redescribe how the PD and IRA are separate.
Yes. Okay. So, I would say let's chat. First of all, let's definitely get together about that, because I'm gonna have Sherry Steckler reach out to you. And we can talk about how it is, you know, like possible maybe to apply for more on the planning side of things, because you said like, well, maybe we want to plan at this point. Actually, that's exactly what you could do and apply for a grant to help you do that. So like, the reason I get excited, I want you to think about applying for this round, is because I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. And so I would say kind of go for it in this planning program development mindset of like assessment. Do we need an assessment of like canopy or of the current condition of our trees? Do we need an inventory, an updated tree inventory? And those are things you can just contract out. So those are, you know, like really straightforward consultation type of projects. Planning a master management plan could be another one. And if you have that this year, then you're even more prepared for the next year to apply for like grants to implement your plan or your assessment or the findings that you have in your, you know, preliminary planning or whatever. So you can use these grant funds to apply for planning, if that makes sense. And it can be pretty straightforward if you do it that way. So I say, let's brainstorm. Definitely think about being proactive and making it simple, and the application process, you know, is something we can walk through with you too. So that's kind of what we're, you know, here for. Sherry and Hannah are ready to help. And they've been in these planning meetings learning about the grants, you know, the ins and outs of it. So they're very well versed now in it. And of course, I'm always available for chatting. And I did see another question, Alexis, about if people can apply for both grants. And the answer is yes, you can apply for both grants. That is totally fine, because you know, depending on the amount of money that we do have available, as you'll see, you know, they'll both be competitively, individually scored on their own basis. So that is totally fine. Have fun at the Christmas program.
May I add one more thing to that?
Yes.
If you do want to apply for both, you use the same application, just submit 2 different applications. So essentially log in twice, fill it out twice, one for each side.
Ah, thank you, Janice. That's a good point. So let's see, eligible type of projects. Yes, I do have examples of that. Let me find actually. Okay, wait. Okay. So on this note, projects that are eligible can be identifying areas lacking in canopy cover. You can strategically plant trees, like I said, doing this assessment. Supporting the use of food forests is another really important one. Things that are like getting at climate resilience, trial tree species plantings, educational components. And in fact, you know, regarding that, I was going to mention that with the IRA funds, that things that have came up, the questions are like, well, how would we want to do that? Like, let's say we want to apply for a grant for an education campaign or a training campaign. If the benefits are towards or if they benefit underserved populations, if that's kind of the aim to benefit the underserved populations or disadvantaged communities, then we can kind of look at that, of how that is, you know, an IRA eligible grant, and how you can focus and make the focus on that. So there are ways to do that. Climate adaptation would be another example. Pollution control, stormwater projects, health and wellness. A big one is workforce development and training, specifically too, again, like towards if there are underserved populations, that would be a really good one to focus towards. And like I said, inventory management plans, hazardous tree removal and replacement if you have other pieces in place and are ready to do that. And of course, management and planning for trees at risk. I have some examples on the slide even of, there's the canopy assessment, and then it's showing kind of a green infrastructure project before and after of a entryway corridor that now has permeable pavers. This is in City of Dillon, and kind of improving their entryway corridor for tree planting. So I have tons of fun ideas too. There's great kind of best technologies out there that I would love to see make it into our communities. So think big, think like all the things that you might want to do. So I hope that helps. I get pretty excited about it too once I understand like more of what your community needs are, and then we can go from there. Let's see, any other questions? Kind of reading through them too.
Did you see Joe's follow-up question about he's paid for trees already? Could he qualify that for match for this project?
Already cut trees. Oh, unfortunately, no. These will be so costs have to be incurred within the grant agreement lifespan. So anything like that we could do, or if the project was already kind of awarded and into that project that you would already apply for, we could. So shoot, that's too bad. Like, I mean, it's good that you did that though. Yay, that you cut checks already for the 2024 season. But yeah, we'll have to kind of, maybe tag on to that and make kind of like, oh, here's a supplemental grant too, and we can make this project even twice as big or something like that, and be like, here's a lot more money. I hope that makes sense. If any of the grants people want to correct me on that too, they can. I go by what they say. I'm only repeating what they say.
You're right. It has to be within the grant period. So once it's signed and before the expiration date.
Okay. Boundaries for each city. That might be a good question for you, Kirsten.
I saw that one come in. I was already ready for it. I'm going to share my screen real quick as the example as to where you can explore this data if you want to. So back in that mapping tool at the very top here, we have that EJ, which is the light gray shading, and then the CGEST, which is the one with the stripes. And these come from federal sources. So CGEST is what we were told to use, and we turned this data, and you can explore it more. There's definitions of all kinds of good stuff here. The lines are drawn based on the census tracts. Like I said, if you want to dig into the data, you're more than welcome to have a field day in here between this and then the environmental justice information. What we did at DNRC is just take the data. That one's looking like it's going to take a minute. We took this data and digested it and put it into a more approachable format for you guys to use in this app to be able to draw those polygons and portray your message a little better. Jamie, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, and you can see right there how it says the tool uses census tracts. I forgot to mention that. Did we talk about that?
That was not mentioned.
Okay, yeah, that's how also the Forest Service has been asking all programs across the department to start tracking things geospatially. So all of our projects, whether it's like a fuels mitigation project or an urban forestry project, they're asking us to kind of put on a map and show where we've done work. So By census tracts, I hear is the way that they're kind of leaning towards across the board. So those are kind of the boundaries again that they are asking us to use. And so, yeah, we are incorporating that. And on EJ's screen, Kristen, if you can pop onto that and show where, do you remember the tab and how we got to the specific layer that we used in EJ screen?
No, I was not a part of that level of GIS information.
Okay, so just quickly for that. Oh, thank you for zooming in a little. So on the upper left, go to the place marker tab. Yep, places, and then down at the bottom, you'll see Justice 40-IRA. And then, yep, that's it right there, is EPA IRA disadvantaged communities. And the nice thing about that is it's like, again, already pre-identified for us. So like Kirsten said, all this data was just pulled from our GIS team into one kind of easy to read document. So CGEST is going to be kind of the primary map that people should think about focusing on. If CGEST is the main area where the project is going to occur, you will get a slight bit of priority points versus EJ screen, but either way, you will be eligible for IRA funds. If it only falls in the EJ screen, it still qualifies for IRA funds. So I hope that makes sense. It's just CGEST gets a little more priority because that's what the Forest Service prefers for like the ultimate map to use. But certainly this expanded our ability, and that's what I was talking about, where when I first initially looked at the map for just CGEST alone, a lot of Montana wasn't actually covered in it. And this was actually more accurate by using both tools and merging into one.
And just for a visual representation of that again, where I drew those orange polygons, the stripes, those are the CGEST, the ones that will be given a priority point for being completely within that area. Whereas on the left side of the screen, it is still shaded gray. It's eligible for the IRA funds. And then, sorry, I'm just going to drag up to the top. You can see that very bright gray color. That is not in either of these. Just so point that out.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
There's one more that came through from Sherry. She stated, I work with private landowners. Can grants be used on private lands if a nonprofit was the project manager?
Okay, so for this round, we will be focusing on public lands, but that does not rule out private lands work. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. I might have, this is where I've pulled out, like I have these people on here. Lori Palm might be able to answer that question, or Janice, but this is kind of a unique situation where in the past urban forestry projects were only on public lands, but with these IRA funds, if they're in disadvantaged areas, there will be like kind of consideration as to how the project would again benefit the underserved populations. So land ownership is kind of based again, like depending on where it falls within the CGEST map will be determined at that rate. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but basically kind of let me know a little more and we can kind of decipher if the private landowner type project is a possibility. Usually though, if we expand more towards a community level, like the entity is applying on behalf of like the entire community to help, private landowner canopy, for example, it kind of depends, because urban forestry, as you know, is like all the trees in the community, right? It's not just the public trees. So the Forest Service has kind of acknowledged that and recognizes that and is considering how to best apply that with these grants. Totally wishy-washy answer, I know. Lori, do you want to add anything to that, or Jacob? Or Janice?
I would just say I agree, Jamie. I think you described it, that it's a case by case basis. And I would encourage someone to reach out early. You know, you don't have to fill out the whole application. You can contact us now and, you know, kind of pitch your project and we can see if it fits the requirements, and then you'll know whether it's worthwhile to go through with a full application.
Yeah. Like that.
There are a few more questions that I think could be answered pretty quickly, but I do want to point out the time as well. It's 2:05, just to be conscious of everyone's time. Jamie, are you okay if I ask the last two for now?
Yeah, we do if people are willing.
Okay. So one of them is, does a boulevard count as a public lands?
Yeah, so there's actually we can help with that with map situations, but most of the time boulevards are public right of way situations. So we have cadastral maps and things like that to show if it's public right of way. Then boulevards 90% of the time, 95% of the time are considered in the public right of way.
And then the other one, is there a limit on how many applications you can put in? Like, can you put in multiple for PD and multiple for IRA?
In the past, we usually had limit of one per entity per community. If it does represent a separate community, possibly. That's a great question that I might have to get back to them on. Or if grants people have weigh in on that one.
Well, we have said that they can apply for IRA funds and PD funds, but we haven't ever really discussed if they could do like 4 applications or, you know, for IRA.
Yeah.
If I were writing it, I would, if it was all in one community, I would probably put it in one project, you know, and I would map out where, you know, the disadvantaged communities and put those in my IRA, and I would map out where they're not and put those in my PD. Because if you put a bunch in, I don't know, some are going to be a lot weaker than others, and you may end up with less money than you could have had if you combined them. That's just a personal opinion.
That's a good point.
Hi guys, and just to clarify, do you mean entity or community? Because we're from Missoula and I'm thinking, do I need to work with the city of Missoula if they wanted to put in an application and we're MCPS, or are we two separate entities that could apply?
Ah, see, that's where it's case by case too. So I would say check in with City of Missoula in that case. And see too if the projects, like, you might even be able to combine that into one master proposal and team up together. Especially if like your elements might be, you know, let's say it's $10,000 or something, and the community, the city's only applying for 30,000. I'm just giving an example. And it's you know, something that you could put your projects into one proposal and they could kind of handle the project for you on your behalf, or contract through you, or, you know, not subaward it, but you know, there's different options for it. But in that case, if it's a different, like you're saying, we want to do, you know, an educational campaign for all the schools and tree planting across the board for all the schools for MCPS, that kind of does entail a different application or a different project in my world. But it's always good to kind of see how, like, what the city Missoula has planned, and then what the, you know, MCPS has planned. I hope that makes sense. We might need to kind of work together on that and see what might be best. But in that case, maybe you would want to apply separately. But I do like what Janice is saying overall. If it's just a small project or something, the stronger proposals have these really good, you know, combination of projects that are all kind of going towards a common theme, or a you know, bigger picture type of thing. We're just gonna have to chat.
No, that's great information. Thank you.
Those are all the questions as of right now. I'm reposting so that it's in the chat a couple of times if you missed it, the important URLs and emails for everyone to copy and paste or screenshot and save for future referencing.
Thank you. That sounds like a plan. Yeah, well, if there's no more questions, then please, yeah, reach out, shoot an email to all of us, any of us, there they are. Some good references. We will, like you said, we're still kind of posting new information as it comes along. I'm thinking about trying to get like a frequently asked questions up there. I'm pulling kind of from like what Forest Service has been hearing and things like that. So I'm just trying to get the most accurate and up-to-date information as we go. But just know y'all are doing an amazing job, and I'm really, really excited to see this money get down into the communities in Montana. And just so you also all know, is we are, as rural as we are constantly being noticed and mentioned in national networks. So just thanks for being at the forefront of everything and just being the rock stars that you are. So I'm just really glad that we've got, you know, all of you on here and interested, and we're going to see a really strong grant season. So let's do this. Thanks, you guys. Have an awesome afternoon.
Thank you and have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Todd. See you later.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, everyone. Great job, guys.
All right. Thanks.